Good morning to everyone. Today we will be discussing Physics C3 Vectors, Introduction to Scalars and Vectors and Types of Vectors Concept 1. So first, before going into the concept, we will be discussing the wise up, like what will be in the lesson, what is the content we will be getting to know. So first, we have to learn the physics, what is the physical quantity. For it is divided into 4 types: fundamental physical quantity, derived physical quantity, scalar physical quantity, and vector physical quantity. So we will be getting to know in this wise up about these 4 physical quantities in detail. So first, coming to physical quantity, what is physical quantity? A quantity which can be able to measure is known as physical quantity. So physical quantity means the quantity which can be measured is called physical quantity. Okay, got clarity? Next, coming to the first physical quantity, fundamental physical quantity. What is fundamental physical quantity? A physical quantity which do not depend on each other are called the fundamental physical quantity. First, fundamental physical quantity, they do not depend on each other for their measurements. Okay, like mass. Mass doesn't depend on length. There is no need of length for measuring mass, right? So like that. What is fundamental physical quantity? It is a physical quantity which does not depend on other physical quantities for their measurements. Next, derived physical quantity. A physical quantity which depend on any other physical quantities for their measurements are known as derived physical quantities. So here, derived physical quantities, they depend on other physical quantities for their measurements. So first, coming to what they give an example here, speed. So speed, it depends upon the length. Okay na? If with the length only, how much distance it traveled, by how much speed we can calculate with the distance, like with the help of the length. So that is known as the derived physical quantity. And also force. So here force, how much amount of weight the body is, that much of force can be applied to keep the object in motion. So that this force depends upon the mass and the speed depends upon the weight. Speed depends upon the length. Okay. Next, scalar physical quantity. The physical quantity having magnitude are known as scalar physical quantities. So here we will be having 2 types of quantities as scalar physical quantity and vector physical quantity. So this scalar, next concept is depend upon the scalar and vector only. First we will get to know what is the wise up. Next we will get to know in clarity. Okay no? So first, scalar physical quantities. What is scalar physical quantity? The physical quantity having magnitude and known as scalar physical quantity. Here, this physical quantity only has magnitude but no direction. Okay? It only has magnitude. Like distance, it does not have any direction. It only has magnitude, like that. Okay na? Like here they gave example. Mass is equals to 5 kgs, change in speed is 3 meter per second. Here they didn't mention any direction. Okay na? Next, vector physical quantity. Vector physical quantity, the physical quantity having both magnitude and direction. Here scalar physical quantity, it only has the magnitude. But the vector physical quantity, it has the both magnitude and direction. So it obeys the rules of the vector algebra. It is called as the vector physical quantity. Here, this vector physical quantities not only obeying the rule of the vector algebra, but also it shows the direction, like velocity, acceleration, impulse, like this. Okay. Next, we will study this table. What is this scalar? Difference between the scalar and vector quantities. So what is scalar and vector? First, they are here we got to know in this definition as scalar only is expressed in magnitude, but vector it is expressed in both magnitude as well as direction. Next, what is the second point? Then they can be added by simple arithmetic means. Here Scalar, it can be added with simple arithmetic means. But vector physical quantity, it cannot be added by simple arithmetic means. Because the vector physical quantity, it has some type of algebra. It has to follow. Okay. Next, here what in scalar physical quantity, what is the third point? They cannot be easily plotted on graph paper. Here, scalar physical quantity, due to it does not has direction, so it cannot be plotted on a graphed paper. So without direction, like a graph does not show direction, but we cannot represent it. But vector, easily we can plot it because it can show the direction and the magnitude. Okay. Next, do you understood about this? Any doubts? So here I forgot to tell you. So here scalar and vector quantities, I told you, in graphed paper they cannot be represented because it cannot show the direction, like how many distance it travel, we cannot represent it in a graph. Okay. Next, going into the concept of introduction to scalars and vectors and types of vectors. Okay, now what is the concept name? Introduction to scalars and vectors and types of vectors. So first, what is the point? Based on the mathematical behavior and physical quantities are classified into various types. Among them, we are going to discuss two categories based on their importance in dealing with physical quantities. What they have given here means, in based on the mathematical behavior, physical quantities can be declassified into two various types. Okay, among them we are going to discuss about two categories. Here we already learned in the bicep as physical quantity can be divided into four types. So in that we will be discussing only two types, that is the scalar and vector physical quantities. Okay, what are those? Scalar physical quantity and vector physical quantity. So coming to scalar physical quantity, we already learned in the bicep that scalar physical quantity only has magnitude. So what they give here?